Hi, I'm Sterling Hart, and this is Dreamlight, where we work on dream interpretation and using the insights in the waking life. What does it mean when you dream you are someone else? This shocks some people, the idea that you can be a different person, but when you look at it, it will make sense. Anyone who writes or acts can take on another persona. Actors will talk about living in a persona, a role. We also have the ability to use our imagination to posit what it would be like to live in another situation. Everything from, can you imagine having to go to work at that place? To what it will be like when the kids go to school. So dreaming that you are in another form is just an extension of this ability. Remember, in psychological dreams, every character is an aspect of yourself. One technique with dream interpretation is to imagine not only a conclusion or a beginning to a dream, but also to imagine what it would be like to be in the dream as another character or even as an object. How would you see the place and actions of the dream? This sometimes is very useful, other times it doesn't seem to lead anywhere, but the ability to posit yourself as another or from another point of view makes the mind flexible and is helpful for understanding others. You can walk in their shoes. For the other person you dreamed of being, the main two things are, first, how different is that other person, the character you played in your dream, from who you are in your waking life? So the questions to ask are, what defines this other person? Is it their job? Their gender, their age, their actions, their ethnic identity, the time period they lived, their situation? What qualities or liabilities do they have? Who do they interact with in the dream? What is the nature of their relations with others? What do they do in the dream, and how is it related to who they are? The second aspect is how organized the image of yourself is. Sometimes we don't have a developed notion of how we are seen by others. We just live it. At other times, it can be related to age, for instance. We are aware of how we are and how we are seen, and we aim to present ourselves or actively control how we are seen. So there is the fitting in adaptations that we have. There may be ideological ones or moral characteristics. We may have a firmly established professional identity. We may not want to be seen as something, such as a person with an illness or as a victim. We may have an ethnic identity which causes us to be aware of cultural stereotypes. For instance, celebrities are often one way at home and another in terms of how they see themselves as a public commodity, their image. Cultural images in the media are always a force in a society for good or ill. Celebrities have to make choices of how to be presented. Some have little control over it, or give that control to others as part of the job. They can have a whole media company that represents them. So I would suggest that dreaming of being someone else is really a way of seeing yourself or defining yourself. Look at the characteristics of the dream character. It may be something that is defined by the actions in the dream. It could be an emotion or a quality, or a role, for instance. For example, a quality of being heroic or dull, excited, scared, bewildered, stressed at not being able to remember the combination for a locker. It is the same things you would look for in other characters in the dream. When we read or watch a drama, we tend to identify with one or the other characters. They may be like us or very different, but there is something that we identify with. Perhaps they are fearless or have a good heart or just manage to get themselves into interesting situations. They may have a power or represent a moral force. For instance, a plot line where the main character is really smart and no one around them appreciates them. Why do we like or dislike some characters over others? What do we think with a particular character? For instance, I knew of a woman with muscular dystrophy. She was small and suffering from a loss of bodily function. She had a passion for movies, especially Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. He was a powerful symbol to her, big and powerful. He really wasn't a sex symbol, but a body image. What would it be like to be big and powerful? So I'm suggesting that the roles you are taking on, the other person in the dream, allow you to express characteristics, emotions, and explore situations that may not be accessible in the waking life, but are still part of the inner world and inner possibilities. You can be seen in new ways. I would note here that most lucid dream traditions make use of and train the ability to change one's bodily form and gender. This is to make the mind and self-concept very flexible and creative, to overcome fear, to gain insight, heighten empathy, and to accept other ways of being and points of view. It is common in lucid dream practices to become a small child or a very old version of yourself, as well as change gender, race, culture, become a parent, an animal, etc. In the dream world, you can reinvent yourself and see yourself in the mirror at the same time. If you were in my dream group, we would descend on you like a pack of hungry wolves, asking you all sorts of questions. What you think of these characters if they were real people. What would they be like? What would be important to them? Their job? Their relationships? Their religion? Their power in the world? Name one emotion and situation that would fit each character. Would these people in real life know you or like you? How would you relate to the character in the dream if you met them? There are also ideas that come up as to whether this is a past life memory or that you are living as this person in another dimension or other space in the world. Having had lots of strange experiences, and since I often point to a subliminal level of dreaming as well as a psychological level, let's examine this idea. With past lives, there are usually 3 kinds of experiences. The first is memories that little kids have. These can be quite vivid and detailed. These memories may fade as the child grows or be squashed by their environment. They also can become mixed up with imagination. The second is when someone remembers something due to meditation or some other efforts such as hypnosis or dreaming, etc. These are usually fragmentary. A third one is where we reach a really high point in meditation or other spiritual practice where we come to see all of our past lives scrolling by, and there's this vast view of all these lives. In dreams of past lives, there are 2 main themes. The first is that you meet yourself from the past, such as meeting a farmer who seems oddly familiar. The second is that you are that person in the past in the dream. So the question is how to separate this kind of experience from ordinary dreams. Past lives easily capture our imagination. Think of all the possibilities. So with past lives and dreams, I would look for distinguishing characteristics. There are 4 that are helpful. The first is the dream is vivid. If not visually, it sticks in your mind when you wake up, more so than other dreams. The second is that the past life has some great explanatory power over your present life. The third is that there is some revelation about who, or some instances, what you really are. And fourth, there can be an external confirmation. Not all characteristics need to be present. A past life dream would indicate that you are not remembering something from your personal subconscious, but you are in touch with a deeper level of the subliminal. This means that the dream should energize you. The vividness is also a part of it. On waking, you feel elated or some strong emotion, because it can be related to the dream content as well. In terms of explanatory power, it will usually relate to something that seems to be outside of your conditioning. For instance, if you have always had a strong attraction to something and never known why, or you have a particular talent that has no foundation in your family. Sometimes events and themes in your life will suddenly make sense. The third has to do with why the past memory is coming up. Past life memories are often fragmentary. They most often aren't about numbers such as an address. Most of us don't go around in daily life thinking about where we live and our age and such. We have other things occupy our minds such as work or worries or trying to interpret a dream or understanding why people do things. But at the same time, we occasionally have moments of clarity when we understand ourselves or have some key insight into the world. These are things that come through carried by the memory, and often the reason for the sudden insight and elation on waking with this kind of dream. So as we might gain insight into our past and events in our life, we also gain insight into our place in the universe. The fourth is an external confirmation. This usually means that something outside of your control happens connected to the past life theme. For instance, a friend I knew had a dream of waking up to a man playing a sitar. He knew he was in a rural area. On waking, my friend felt elated and saw a connection to his attraction to world music. Shortly after the dream, an older man that he had worked for was moving on to a retirement home and dropped by giving him a sitar and tambura. It seemed pretty obvious while it was happening. Now, there are subtle planes of existence, and you can have some sort of presence there. I had a friend years ago who had a recurring dream from childhood. She had it once or twice a year. She dreamed she was a man that lived with his family in a house, and the dreams usually involved him coming home from work or being in the house with his family. The characters in the house were always more or less the same, but the story of each dream was different, and time seemed to pass as the children were older. Different mundane things were happening. These dreams were always vivid and very lifelike. There were no things happening or seen that would make you shout out, "This is a dream." They were quite ordinary. There was a feeling with the dream, one of dissatisfaction, disappointment, and sadness. Things in the dream tended to be gray, not black and white, but just colorless. Is this a dream of another reality? Well, before reaching to that idea, the ordinary explanation should be examined. So the key thing that my friend said was that she could never find the emotional link to the contents in her life. She could never find anything in her life that seemed to trigger the dream. She did at times interpret her dreams and did a type of meditation, so the dream didn't seem to fit the psychological theme. So we will leave the metaphysical explanations for these for another time. If you got something out of this video, please hit the like. If you want more dreams, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, check out the Patreon link below. Till next time.